I like to say that I met Jesus Christ in a bathroom stall. The reason why is, by the time I got to Benton County, and back then everybody just detoxed there, I started, going through opiate withdrawal and, puking. And, I go into upstairs with the bathroom. I run into the stall and I'm puking. And I look in the back of the door and there's a Bible verse called John 15:5, and we've all heard that. I've read that, but like, I've never paid attention to the last sentence of that where it says, apart from me, or some versions say, apart from God, you can do nothing. And I remember scoffing at that and just being like, done plenty of things without you. And here I am throwing up because I'm addicted to opiates and pridefully being like, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And so the irony is, over those first 3 days or so, when you really are having physical symptoms, puking and other things going on, I was always in that stall and I would just repeat that. I would vomit, turn around and stare at John 15:5. Puke, just turn around, stare at John 15:5. And then after that kind of started to regress, every time I had to use the bathroom, there was only one stall that was usually unoccupied. And of course it was that stall. And so I became like transfixed with that verse, to where even when I was in class, I would just be thinking about it and thinking, almost haunted by it. And then eventually, as the weeks moved on, those first 30 days, I would just eventually I was locking myself in this stall and just reading it over and over and over. And it started to make sense, not theological sense, but at least practical sense, where I was like, okay, you didn't birth yourself, you didn't give yourself abilities or talents or any of those things. And so really, what can you claim on your own accord? And then all of a sudden, just one day, it just made sense theologically. Like I said, I grew up Catholic, and my whole life, as far as that Matthew 22 that I referenced, I was just like, it always bothered me. I was just like, who can actually love the Lord their God with all their heart? Like, it bothered me. I was like, who does this? Nobody can do this, And eventually, as I grew up, I was like, I just thought it was rhetoric. Like, we all just say this, but no one does it. But I never really understood that, like, my anger and my frustration with who can do this was actually theologically based, because nobody can do it. And then all of a sudden, in that bathroom stall, I was just like, one day it just made sense. It's just like the grace of God.